Well, I think that the issue of deniability. Now, I mean, we were talking. I should say this is the first day we've ever met. We've talked on the phone a bunch of times. One of the people I've sort of pointed you towards is this evolutionary theorist, Bob Trivers, and he wrote this book. I mean, it's really one of the most prominent theorists of our time, and he wrote this book called "The Folly of Fools," that talks about the evolutionary basis of self-deception as the precursor to being able to manipulate others. And if you think about, for example, just I had Bret Easton Ellis in the studio, who wrote American Psycho and Less Than Zero. And we were talking about the issue of seduction. And he said that he wants to be seduced all the time. He doesn't want everything to be explicit. He doesn't want everything, as a mutually agreed upon decision, that in part what is wonderful and delicious to him about life has to do with seduction, and that seduction involves manipulation. But in a world where I think many more people are colliding without a common understanding of each other, not coming from the same backgrounds, there's really an increased propensity for two humans to get these signals wildly wrong. It's probably always been there, but maybe there's an increased ability. So weirdly, the way I see it, the civilian world has always been based on sort of self-deception. And then there have been both the problems that come from that and the really much more exciting aspects that come from that. When it works, probably there's an extra magic to it. Any thoughts on that between what translates to mystique? Do you see that when you're looking at your civilian friends, that they're kind of saying, well, I wonder if he likes me. I got a message. I don't know how to interpret it.
Oh, well, 100%. When it comes to me, even just like dating, I am a very transparent, open person in these aspects of where I don't do the whole seduction game. I kind of just am an open book. And I find that a lot of times it is faulty, where, a lot of people do want this type of seduction. They like these types of games or whatnot, in the sense of where they feel like when you're, and I think it could be because the general public is not so honest and open with what they want, that it's almost like a shock value, where they're like, well, this girl is just really being completely open in general with what she enjoys. And it's often something I loop back around with my therapist, where I'm like, do I need to start being like the more civilian-esque type of a person to be a more dateable person? Whereas instead of being this vulnerable self where I am just constantly myself and say what I like and what I feel in these moments.
Pretty big trade-off.
Yeah, it is. And I often find myself incapable of catering to the general public. I don't know how to do these own kind of mind games on myself. But it is interesting, where I do find that the most common people do enjoy this type of seduction and whatnot. They don't want things to be so blunt and almost easy to an extent. There has to be some sort of work involved and trickery. I believe that it is like a very common theme, at least even in like my dating world, it is.
So one of the things that I thought was really terrific that I first heard from you was some of your ideas about how to make sure that if people are considering entering the erotic arts professionally, that they're making good decisions. That you feel that very clearly this has been a great decision for you. It's worked out financially at a great level. You've been in the business for a long time, haven't been chewed up. You seem to have an incredibly positive attitude. But what I was talking to you about was, well, how uncommon is that? You're obviously in a very unusual position. And you came up with this idea of having like a virtual reality simulator of what it would be like to enter the business. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I think that there are so many people. I mean, you get to start the industry at age 18. And I think that there are so many people who don't necessarily start for the right reasons. Even when I first became in the industry, I was a very hypersexual adolescent. And when I began the industry, it was mostly for money. Though I started off as an extra, I wasn't partaking in these sexual acts. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I had no idea the concepts of it all and whatnot. And I think that now, if a young male or female can get the opportunity to really grasp the sense of what can happen when you join the industry, it would be, I think, a good filter for a lot of the youth and whatnot. So I think it'd be great to have this idea of a virtual reality that allows people to put themselves inside different types of scenarios. So maybe like one scenario is you go in and you tell your parents that you've now joined the adult industry, and one of the reactions are that your parents are distraught. They humiliate you, they shame you, they disown you, things of this
sort. These are fairly common.
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of people have parents who are racist. There are some parents who are like, yes, you can do porn, but not interracial porn, or like in weird things like that. And so they're making their children racist by association, because maybe this child wouldn't care. They would love to have sex with a person of another race, but they don't want their father or mother to disown them. So by association, then listening to their parental rules and guidelines, they will not partake in interracial sex and things like that. So I think that this would be an interesting factor. And I think it'd be very interesting to put the parents in these simulations as well for youthful characters, or maybe even older people who get in the industry. So maybe the parents can understand what it's like to be the adult entertainer and to have their parents be so harshly judging and aggressive and whatnot. Maybe your parents are in a religious state,
Right,
you could maybe fill out a little questionnaire and you're like, my dad is Christian. So like, how would his Christian beliefs affect us negatively? And put the father in that same, virtual reality. And maybe it could also help change the parents to be more accepting. But there also are obviously the parents who will just be terrible and unaccepting. And I think there are other ways to put the future stars in the virtual reality, whereas we had one star, rest in peace, August Ames, where
I was going to ask about this.
Yeah, she had commit suicide from what I gather, some internet bullying, where she did not partake in a sex scene with a crossover star, which is a star who performs both in male to male scenes and male to female scenes. And I'm sure she struggled with other mental illness issues and things like of that sort. And I think that if we were able to put these adolescents in, or these 18-year-olds or these people's future stars in the industry, they would be able to get the experience of the humiliation, the tweets and the social media hate that you're going to get, the ongoing, struggle with dating.
Right. Ashley, but how do you do it? I mean, I've seen some of what comes back at you. It's absolutely brutal.
It is, but I recognize that when I think about it, when I was in elementary school, kids would make fun of me because I'm kind of like a hairy girl. I have like hairy arms and whatnot and hairy legs. So they would call me wolf woman or gorilla girl, and I would just start howling like a wolf or like grunting around like a monkey. And I think that I have always just personally taken criticism and made it comical. So for me, when I see someone saying some hurtful comments, I'm always like, ha, you're brilliant. Like, this is amazing. It's so hilarious to me. So I have a different ability into translating how negative terminology and derogatory statements towards myself that actually impacts me.
Well, you literally have a tattoo in another language, or no, I don't know which one. That
Chinese.
Says, Oh, is it Chinese?
Yeah.
That says, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yeah.
So that seems to be pretty deep.
Yeah, I've always been able to make things a more positive experience within myself. And I think that if we were able to help see which people could handle these types of experiences, who could handle the shame, who could handle, all of the terrible aspects that come into being an adult entertainer, then I think it would be a better filter for, you know, allowing these experiences. And maybe they should have these experiences for the viewers who are saying the terrible nonsense so that they could understand. Because I'm pretty
how much pain they're inflicting.
Yes. Like, I think that listening to one of the Sam Harris podcasts, he was talking about to somebody where they were talking about putting men in simulations where they get catcalled or, you know, sexual suggestions thrown at them, where they were now almost be able to think of like, wow, actually, maybe I won't treat women that I don't know like this because
Right.
it's actually not okay, and it made me feel uncomfortable.